There's another mode of faulty decision-making that was popularized by a story called the Abilene Paradox. Now, the Abilene Paradox is about a family in Texas. It's a hot night, and they're deciding what to do, and they're sitting on the front porch, and one of the family members says, I know, we can drive to Abilene. I hear there's this new bar, they have food, and we can go there. What do you think? And people look at one another, and the next thing you know, the family is in the car. They go to Abilene, they go to this bar. It's crowded, it's hot, the beer's warm, the food's cold, nothing's going right. They have their dinner, they get in the car, they come home, they're back on the porch, and they say, well, whose idea was that anyway? And the father says to the mother, oh, it was your idea. And she said, no, I just heard of this place. It was our son's idea. He said, no, I said that I heard of it too. It's the sister's idea. And the sister said, no, I didn't say I wanted to go. I said I would go if you wanted to go. And so forth. So the Abilene Paradox is the idea that group decisions sometimes happen based upon ideas that no one endorses at all. Now, perhaps you've been in this situation. There's a few dynamics at play that lead to this type of bad decision making. The first one is when you have a group that is lacking energy, a group that isn't really energized and focused on doing something. There's apathy involved. A group that's there, maybe they really don't want to be there, they don't have a good deal of focus or energy or real interest, and so any idea that comes along is the idea that is seized upon and moved forth. Another dynamic that leads to this Abilene Paradox is poor transactional skills. In other words, people haven't really checked with one another. So the moral of the story is bring energy to the group and make sure that everybody agrees on a decision before moving forward. Otherwise, you too might fall for the Abilene Paradox. There's a good deal of interesting research that focuses on group decision making. And one more troubling vein of this research leads to a faulty decision-making process called risky shift. So have you ever been in a group that really didn't consider the full consequences of its actions before moving on? Maybe made a bad choice and later regretted it? Well, perhaps the risky shift can explain this. And the body of research concludes that in many instances, groups make riskier decisions than individual members would make on their own. So again, consider your experiences. Has this ever happened? And if so, why? Well, a few of the major dynamics that lead to risky shift are based upon the idea of anonymity. When you're in a group, oftentimes you feel anonymous, in that it's not your individual decision, it's the group's decision. And so if the group is going along with something, you're not directly held accountable, which is the second dynamic. There's really no personal accountability. There's group accountability. And you can be anonymous within a group, particularly some groups that act in some level of secrecy or where minutes and votes are not taken about who said what or who voted in which way. And so we have this process called risky shift, and it requires a really good communicator and somebody who has assertive skills to get out ahead of that and make sure that the group realizes the full consequence of its decisions.